All right, let's get into it. We're going to unpack one of the most unique, complicated, and, right now, intensely scrutinized relationships in the world. For decades, the bond between the US and Israel has been a massive piece of the puzzle in the Middle East. But lately, things have changed, and this alliance has been pushed into a very, very public spotlight.
You know, this quote from a protester in the US really gets to the heart of what a lot of people are thinking right now. It's a direct challenge to this decades-long flow of American tax dollars that have been going to Israel for over 75 years.
And this is the number you always hear, $3.8 billion. That's the baseline amount of military aid the U.S. sends to Israel every single year. It makes Israel the largest recipient of American foreign aid since World War II. But believe me, that number is really just the starting point of our story.
So what's going on? To really understand what's happening today, we have to look at two things. First, the official story of how this alliance was built. And second, the powerful and often invisible forces that have kept it so strong for so long. And we're going to see why, for what feels like the first time, this unbreakable bond is being seriously questioned inside Washington, D.C.
The whole conversation around U.S. aid to Israel has just fundamentally changed. I mean, what used to be something you just didn't touch in politics is now front and center in a huge public debate.
Just look at that recent vote on Senator Sanders' resolution. Okay, yeah, it got voted down, 72-11. But that's not the whole story here. The real headline is that the Senate was actually forced to publicly debate and vote on whether there should be accountability for U.S. aid to Israel. That shows a major crack in what used to be a solid wall of agreement from both parties.
So, how did we even get here? To understand today's arguments, you really have to go back and see how this very unique partnership was put together piece by piece through decades of conflict and Cold War politics. It all started with humanitarian support back in 1948, but the real turning point, the moment everything changed, was the 1973 Yom Kippur War. The U.S. stepped in to help Israel fight off Soviet-backed countries, and that's what turned this into a strategic, military-first alliance. And then, the Camp David Accords in '79. That basically locked it in as something both Democrats and Republicans would support for decades to come.
But here's the thing. That official history, it's only half the story. Running right alongside it, there's this powerful, incredibly organized engine of political influence in Washington, working behind the scenes to make sure that support never, ever fades.
A huge player in this story is AIPAC. Now let's be clear, it's an American lobbying group. Its whole mission is to strengthen the U.S.-Israel relationship. And their methods are, frankly, incredibly effective and go way beyond what you might think of as typical lobbying.
This influence is built on a strategy that works like a charm, AIPAC's key contact system. Okay, so step one, they figure out which wealthy, influential donors live in the district of every single member of Congress. Step two, when a big vote comes up, they activate those donors to put direct pressure on their local politician. And step three, and this is key, they give money to candidates in both parties. That way, they have influence no matter who's in charge. And the results? Well, they pretty much speak for themselves. In the 2024 U.S. election cycle, candidates backed by AIPAC and its partners won almost 88% of their races. It's just a crystal clear example of how good this system is at getting allies elected and critics defeated.
And we're not just talking about campaign checks here. It's a much longer game than that. It's this sophisticated, long-term strategy of rewards and, well, punishments that targets everyone, from college kids all the way up to powerful politicians.
It's often called the carrot and the stick approach. The carrot is the reward, an invitation for an all-expenses-paid trip to Israel to see a very particular side of the story. The stick is for anyone who steps out of line. They often find themselves facing attack ads and a very well-funded challenger in their next election.
And this isn't just a theory. We've seen this happen very recently. When Congressman Jamal Bowman boycotted a speech by Israel's president, pro-Israel groups spent millions of dollars to fund his opponent, and he ended up losing his primary election. Or look at Congresswoman Ilhan Omar. After she criticized the lobby's influence, she was voted right off the very powerful House Foreign Affairs Committee.
What's really wild is that this strategy isn't even new. It's basically an updated version of a playbook that was first used on the global superpower of the early 20th century, Great Britain. Intense lobbying efforts back then led directly to something called the Balfour Declaration in 1917, which was a huge step toward the creation of the State of Israel.
So all of this brings us to the big question.
right? With all this political machinery humming in the background, what is the official reason the U.S. government sees this relationship as absolutely non-negotiable?
So you really have two stories running at the same time. The official one you hear in D.C. is that Israel is a vital strategic partner, a stable democracy, a military powerhouse that shares intelligence, a tech hub. But running right alongside that is the unofficial story, this powerful, well-funded system working 24/7 to make sure that official story stays dominant no matter what happens. And the result of this 75-year relationship, a total investment from the U.S. to Israel that's estimated to be over $300 billion. When you adjust for inflation, that number is just staggering. It has created a financial and military bond that's unlike any other in American foreign policy.
And that's what it all comes down to. You have a new generation asking tough questions about old alliances, and these deep, deep roots are being tested like never before. The old consensus is fractured, and what comes next is honestly anyone's guess.